Ian Lane Davis. At the time, he was a founder of Mad Dog Games. He's I think, a director over at Rockstar New England. And he was talking about that the goal of AI in a game isn't actually to win. And this already starts to kind of shift our thinking about what is his job. And he said his job is to put up a fight and lose, right? To make a compelling appearance that, like, when we watch a Rocky movie, we want to see Ivan Drago almost win, but not. We want to see Creed almost win, but not, because the hero's got to win. And the player is the hero. And so a lot of what we're really thinking about these kind of cases isn't really the assumption sometimes from an engineering lens. I work with a lot of people who come from a programming background is, how do I make it maximally effective? And the truth is, in a real-time game, that's the easiest thing in the world. The computer has no reaction time. The computer compute exact angles instantaneously. It's not going to overshoot or undershoot. It will annihilate you. And there are popular games that have made this mistake in the 90s of, like, you'd walk in a room in a SWAT game and say the original Rainbow Six, you just die instantly. Because it can.
Yeah. The AI's cheating. They're cheaters. They don't, even if they did follow the rules, that's the crazy thing. The computer is just so much quicker than you that they could do everything that you do. They just do it faster, and you're going to die.
One of my early jobs in industry was Medal of Honor Airborne. It's been back in 2005, 2007. And they're working on something called the affordance system. It's this neat, publicly documented approach to AI that could, like, swarm and does all the cool tricks. But in designing that system, Tim Ford, Matt Tonks, lead engineers on that, they ran into this puzzle of you can make it do all kinds of, like, smart flanking the player. And the problem was people thought it was backspawning. People thought it was cheating. It was doing things completely fair, completely exactly what literal soldiers, like, they would study in books. How do army people do this? Have your people create a diversion, do it, annihilate you in 100% of the time. Testing feels like cheating. The goal can't be to annihilate the player. And so this is part of why basically expressivity becomes so important to it. And this is where we look at something, say, Metal Gear Solid. And I like this because it's so on the border of anime cartoonish. Like, yeah, they're carrying realistic looking guns or whatever. But you think about, right, the triangle over the head, the famous boop sound, they're expressing their state to you. Now, is that what good soldiers do? Absolutely not, right? When they're trying, and we see this all the time in games, if they're searching for you, they're playing Thief, and you're hiding under a table, you can see them waltz around, they act like they're searching, and they'll basically announce to no one in particular, oh, can't find them, back to patrol. That reads as more intelligent to the player, despite the fact that it is not intelligent behavior for a person.
Right.
That's not the point. We have to see what's going on. There's this great counterexample. I think we talked about it before briefly. You're not familiar with Trespasser, right? Haven't heard of this?
Don't know what that is.
Excellent. So
sounds
Trespasser,
like a person on my lawn or something.
Honestly, so it's an old Jurassic Park game from the 90s, and it actually did some neat physics things before, like, Half-Life 2 made these things more popular. It was kind of before its time. But I mostly found out because it was by DreamWorks Interactive, which is what merged into the Electronic Arts branch that I worked at. And Trespasser, one of the bananas things that it tried to attempt, it was a Jurassic Park game, was they would simulate all this complexity about the ecosystem of dinosaurs. They get thirsty. They go to the watering hole. They're bored, so they try to, like, socialize, whatever dinosaurs do. And an incredible misuse of human energy, because the only time you see a dinosaur is from a distance, and, like, it's just doing an idle, or it's up close and attacking you. And all that energy is wasted. All that energy is misspent on what the player can't see, can't tell, isn't being communicated to them. And in fact, so often the time for game AI, practically random is better than sophistication. It's easier, it's faster. And the human brain as a pattern matching machine is so good at describing intelligence or teamwork where it isn't. And so one of my favorite examples for this, canonically, classic Pac-Man. So each of the ghosts has a very specific deterministic way that they behave. The red ghost chases you directly, one chases a position offset, one occasionally chases another ghost. They've got these different behaviors, but it's so deterministic that what top-level Pac-Man players do is they memorize the steps to move, because as long as you do the exact same turn on this pellet, all the ghosts will do the exact same thing. They literally are driven by your position only and your movements over time. But people perceive teamwork in Pac-Man. There is no coordination. They're not talking to each other. They aren't strategically, you go this way, I'll go that way.
Right.
But the player sees, I got stuck, and we tell ourselves this story that, they're working against me. They caught me in the corner. And the extra level above this is where we're, again, bad AI, less effective AI, they make decisions and commit to it. And this is when a good Pac-Man player knows, same for Miss Pac-Man, you can juke them. You can make them think I'm going this way. They'll commit to a turn, and then you change directions. They hold that decision. And again, like, it's less effective, but it makes for more fun AI when we can outsmart them because they behave in predictable ways. where I feel like I am the hero, I'm the champion,
Right.
I'm doing Jedi mind tricks on everybody. And
Yeah.
this is me playing GoldenEye, where I know if I do this, you can't shoot me over the stairs. It's ludicrous, but I use that
would
to my
imagine
advantage.
Part of that predictability is the transparency of what's happening. And going back to kind of Metal Gear, that's what you're saying. That's a triangle. That is the transparency that you were seen by an enemy, and it basically let you know that happened.
And it's not even just about the mechanical state, which again, I know mostly because I work with so many programmers, they're thinking off at this engineering level of like mechanically what's happening under the hood. It is at a narrative, expressive, experiential thing. And this is something where a Bubble Bobble, one of my favorite games, literally playing as a little child, a few years old, playing Bubble Bobble. In this classic 1986 game, same characters as Puzzle Bobble, but not the same game. You'd get enemies in a bubble. If they break out of the bubble or the last enemy left, they turn red and they move faster. And they're mad at you. And just changing their color and changing their speed, as a child, it was
Right.
mad at me. That means something. And as a child playing Metal Gear and a soldier like finds you, it affects you at an emotional level different than if a Boolean's flipped under the hood and it's searching for you, but you don't know that. It's not
Right.
stomping around. This is what Alien Isolation did so well. The animations of the alien checking the room, seeming to is sniffing for you, which is telepathy. Does it know? It'll leave the room, come back, and get you under the table because it's messing with you. Its whole job is dramatic. It's theatrical. It's not actually an engineering problem if the way I do it as effectively as possible. It's taking a step past that to say, how do I sell this? How do I use my animations, my sound, my vocalizations? Games like Fear and No One Lives Forever did the same thing, where the AI was treated as super intelligent. Really, all they're doing was just announcing, throwing a grenade, going around the corner, can't find them, lost track. But again, that's what we read as intelligence because it's state, and that's the only way it affects us, not what's happening under the hood. It's that dramatic layer on top of it.
Right. I think real life is way too many shades of gray, right? And video games they're satisfying to us because a lot of times they're very communicative of what's going on, and we can understand these systems and we can look at these systems and understand how to affect those systems.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, it's one of the things where people, they pretend like I wanted to be able to do anything in the game. The reality is like that's part of what makes reality so bad. I like the
Right.
clarity of take out the zombies. I like the clarity of get to the top of that hill. Thank goodness. I wish, day-to-day was like that. And this is also
Grand Theft Auto, the 5-star, kind of deal of like, oh, well, I can shoot somebody now and the cops won't know. But
yeah.
if once you get 1 star, you're like, okay, I better chill out.
And I even know if I sit this out in 30 seconds, the police are like, the sniper's
it's
gone.
It's a system, exactly.
Right, and we give ourselves that because it's a toy we're playing with. We're not fooling ourselves. We're not trying to actually pretend. And the same thing's true, honestly, for Hitman, where I think one of the fascinating things about what I love about Hitman, when you're first playing Hitman games, oh man, you assume that these are like real people. They're gonna smell you and they're gonna hear you, and like, oh, what if they're gonna see a uniforms on the floor, a blood pile? And the more you play it, the more I was like, this is the Three Stooges. Like, these absolutely, it's just the silliness of what you can and can't get away with right behind them because you just shot the wall behind him, but now he turns and checks it. And the more you get into the systems of it, the more playful it is. But again, it's so expressive and rich because it's predictable, because I learned how to manipulate it. As we're even simpler or old, and some people are hesitant to even call this stuff AI, what Mario's little Koopas do, what Mario's little Goombas do, what all these different characters in old Bubble Bobble do. They go back and forth and throw lightning down, or they turn both ways and then jump.
Right.
Even those kind of things, part of what's so nice about them is they're mechanical. And this starts to bleed into a more modern kind of game design, still modern now, 30 some odd years ago. But so Doom's AI is, I like as an example for a design perspective on AI, where each one of these characters, you got your zombies who have guns, who fire at an interval. You got to block the line of sight with them when they're about to fire. Of course, they're telegraphing their state. I'm about to fire. That's how you got to block the line of sight. You got your imps who throw slow projectiles. You got to dodge that projectile, probably after it already left its hand. You got its demons who are going to run up to you. And you got its lost souls who are like flying in faster, but similar to the demon, direct contact only. And what this does, it's a bit like if you look at a chessboard of where the knight can go, where the pawn can go, where the bishop can go. As a player, you're learning each one of these enemies at a time. And then thereafter, they've got the smorgasbord, they've got a grammar established. If I take those same enemies and put them in a new setting with columns in a different position, as a player, you can already predict, okay, I'm going to run this way to get away from that demon. I'm going to get this pole between me and those zombies. And that's what makes you feel like you're good at this game, and the AI is rewarding you, that you're able to predict, if I do this, here's what they're going to do, and you're just running circles around them. And again, it's like Jedi-like intuition of the future. I just know what they're going to do, and this is the same mastery that comes from GoldenEye of, I know they can't hit each other through each other, so I'm gonna 3 people in a room. run on the one side of one, block the line of sight to the other, shoot the third. I'm too close for this one to hit me because his gun fires through my back. As bizarre and inhuman as that is, that's what makes these such satisfying AI systems, which is different than, again, is that optimal? Heck no. Is that what people should do?
Right.
It absolutely is not.
That's not what's fun about it, is it being optimal or being realistic, right? If it was realistic, a lot of things we do in games would probably horrify us. So like, but yeah, that transparency and that understanding of state helps you memorize the systems, and getting better at predicting the systems is what makes you feel like having fun.
Exactly. And this is one of the things that caused Doom 3 and there's some things to love about it, some things to dislike about it. I was one of those players who was a huge fan of Doom 1 and 2. I was a modder for those back in the 90s. I loved those games. And then Doom 3, I was so disappointed. And part of the problem was it made the mistake of trying to focus on making one-on-one fights interesting. And the trouble there is what makes the one-on-one fights work is state that's inside the mind of the computer. And I don't get that same clarity on. I can't see the room and anticipate that, okay, orchestrational, you're doing this. I can already predict because you're so mechanically consistent and clear. And so this is why even when we're developing AI, we kind of go through these stages of an implementation phase. There's, first of all, it has to just do valid maneuvers randomly. It's pushing the gas, it's turning the steering wheel, the same controls the player used. That's how you can tell it's not cheating. Followed by that, we have it then play effectively, which again is actually the easier problem to solve. How to make it aim at you, how to make it shoot you, how to whatever. And the third layer is, okay, now we're going to make human-like errors. If it's a Pong player even, it needs to overshoot,
right,
not just move too slow, because that's not how human beings screw up at Pong. And that's where things really start to get interesting at. Okay, this is also where we've got games such as Uncharted, right? Those kind of series of games, where in a lot of these kind of games, they'll be going out of cover. They'll miss you several times in a row, because those are warning shots. And
right,
at a director level, their experiences, they're like, take cover, get behind cover. And that's part of the experience. They are specifically missing you. And so it's often in Quake, the characters are aiming behind where you were. So it's kicking up dust particles, and you can hear the shots are just missing as you're running. But it's selling, I'm screwing up in a very human way.
I remember loving watching my brother play Metal Gear because it was so transparent. Even watching it, I could see what was happening. And I played Splinter Cell a while because I was like, okay, this is kind of a cool stealth game. But as the sequels came out and stuff, they started to have these new systems where, am I in the shadow? Am I not? I'm like 30% in the shadow. Can they see me? But then there was a game that came out called Mark of the Ninja by Clay, which took it, in my brain, it kind of combined Metal Gear with Splinter Cell, because it's like you were this ninja, but it was a 2D game, and the light and the darkness were very clear. Right? It wasn't any shade of gray. It wasn't any kind of anything. So you were either in the light or you were in the darkness, and the characters were either facing you or they were not. It was very transparent on how it worked, and I loved that.
And this is where games like Thief, where darkness is such a core mechanic, they give you a UI indicator to be like, you are visible, you are not. Or there'll be games, right, and even Skyrim, right, they'll get a little eye, I'm hidden, I am seen.
Right.
And there's this mistake. In fact, Trespasser, we mentioned earlier, is one of the games that highlighted this mistake of people will think that the design goal for UI should be to minimal, show no information. That's awful. And so Trespasser went so far, like your health was, you look down at your heart tattoo, and it was just the most ludicrous thing. Like you would fire a gun, should be like 3 shots left, because they didn't want to show UI. But that UI is critical information to the player to know to interact with these systems, and it is a much more rich experience where perceptually, if you were there, you would have a sense of are they noticing me or not, from much more subtle clues, and we're establishing through the games, characters, and animations, and so on. And it's the same kind of thing where we do a third-person camera in a driving game. When you're driving, you've got more awareness of your immediate surroundings the way you don't looking through a shoebox in a first-person view. And it's just part of the design for the experience where it is often better if I'm playing James Bond knows how many rounds are left in this gun. Show me that, because I need to be James Bond right now. And yeah, the same sort of thing going on for if I'm a spy, if I'm infiltrating, I know when I'm being detected and not. And so I know if I'm in shadow or not. In a way, the player, those details get fuzzier. And I will say, and this is not to hate on some modernizations and stuff, but it's one of the challenges that comes from people will take these retro games and up-res, remake, high definition, add a ton of details and clutter, and you lose some of that visual clarity of, what was a shadow? Is this branch between me and them obfuscating their view of me? Some games do that, some games don't, but it's decorative, and it's not a part of the environment and its relationship with AI with us.
Right. So AI sounds like a huge topic and subject. Luckily, we're doing a workshop.
We could talk about it all day.
We could do a one-day event where we talk about AI. Called the Game AI Workshop on March 18th. It's going to be fun. Come hang out with Chris and I. We're going to go through the whole day talking about lots of different examples, example code, Q&A, all kinds of fun stuff. And there's several different specific kind of deep dives into different game types and AI and all this kind of stuff. And I'm excited. I'm going to learn a bunch because, I need AI for my games, and I'm fascinated by the stuff.
Yeah, and I do want to specify, right, that day we'll be talking a little bit of concepts up front and at the end, but really a lot of the day is much more hands-on than what we did today. It's much more technical. We're looking at literally A-star and alpha beta pruning, looking at some things about waypoints and racing games, all these kind of different strategy and techniques and tools, things that help you go do something with it. We have some of the discussion of concepts to help situate that knowledge, but we take things much further that day than we did today.
Right, what it is, what it looks like, but also how to do it, how to actually
with runnable code, you'll have your hands in.
Know for our games.
Yep.
Gotcha. Cool. So come join us on March 18th. It'd be awesome. Recordings will also be available if we can't make the live event. But check out for a link somewhere on this page. Click it, find more information. But Chris, thank you for sharing with us. That's awesome.
Thanks for having me on, Tim. Yeah, find the link in the description.
Excited.
Sign up.